this week as I was getting ready for this, my girls started talking to me about a dance that they're going to go to. Both of them were in middle school, and it made me think back to my middle school dances. We was kid and play in it, and we was doing all kinds of stuff and having some fun with it. And it also reminded me of our 8th grade dance. So in my school, we had the 8th grade dance. The 8th grade dance changed the school and myself forever. One in a good way, maybe, and one in not such a good way. My 8th grade dance, we all dressed up like we were going to prom. Chess King, that was the name of the store. We went to Chess King, and I had an all-white suit, pink shirt, white tie, white shoe. I mean, it was pimp. It was. I'm telling you, woohoo! It was real nice, Clark. I look back and think, what in the world was I doing? But I went with this girl. This girl's name was Patricia Salyer. Ooh, Patricia. Now, stay with me here as I give you this description, and you can find pictures of her on Facebook. We had somebody in the last service get a picture of her. I didn't have a picture of her up because they're all too pixelated on this big screen. Patricia, now see if this sounds familiar. She has curly blonde hair. She has blue eyes. She's smart. She played basketball. And she lived in a house, which was a really big thing to me back then because I figure everybody who lives in a house is rich because I had never lived in a house. And I live in a house and I recognize not everybody who lives in a house is rich, but back then, Patricia, ooh boy. So I wanted to go to the 8th grade dance with Patricia Salyer. Now guys, stick with me here. Girls, I don't know if you ever had to work through any of this at all, but you remember when you first invited a girl, whether it was out on a date or to a dance or whatever it is, and you're just like, what if they say no? You got all this anxiety inside of you, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. And, I decided back then I was going to ask her because that was the thing to do. And also, if I sent a note, then she would have proof that I asked her, and she'd be like, she's loud, That's what all of us sort of feel like inside is like they're going to turn us down, and now they've got proof and this and that. So I was like, I'm going to ask her, and one of her friends and her cousin, kept saying, Patricia wants you to ask her. I'm like, is she setting me up? Like, are they just playing a joke on me? I don't know, because she was really cool, and I didn't know where, my social status, were we in the same social league? Or I don't know. Like, you're in middle school. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on inside of you. And then I was watching a movie all these years later, and what I understood was what they said in So We Bought a Zoo, that you just need 20 seconds of insane bravery. And I'm like, boy, is that the truth. Like, just 20 seconds is all I've got to muster. I don't need a minute. I don't need a lifetime. At some points in your life, there is this anxiety inside of you and this just overwhelming feeling that you're just like, oh, I've got to do this, but you're waiting for all the bad things to go wrong. And I just need 20 seconds of insane bravery. And I took it. And I go and I asked Patricia, and she had a big old smile on her face, and me and Patricia went to the 8th grade dance, and it was never the same again. It was never the same at Norton Middle School. Now, it wasn't actually ever the same because everybody put so much money into our outfits that they said you're never allowed to wear suits and dresses like that again because we were spending way too much money. My brother went 2 years later, and, he had on his Nike, or his, I guess it was a Nike New York Yankees outfit, shorts and jersey, and that's what they did then because we were real cool and we dressed real nice. I mean, that's back when you're proud of your pictures and stuff. But Patricia Salyer said yes. And after that, it just became a little bit easier every time to invite somebody, to ask them to go out with me, to ask them on a date, to ask them because the first time you do anything, it's always the most nerve-wracking. It's always the most nerve-wracking. But after that, it gets a little bit easier every time you do it. And what I've understood after these years of being, inviting people, asking them out, whatever it might be, is an invitation is an investment. Now, whatever you're inviting them into is what you're investing in. So it could be you're inviting them into a relationship with you and you're investing in the relationship. Remember this, asking somebody out, asking somebody to marry you, like you're inviting them in, you're investing in the relationship. If you've invited anybody to Catalyst or to a different church, then you've invested in the church. You've invested in the relationship. And sometimes you need that 20 seconds of, big, hairy, audacious bravery. And sometimes you need just that mustard seed of faith because you've done it enough at this point to where it becomes sort of secondhand to you. And I was looking in Scripture and I saw the types of people that Jesus invited. Now, Jesus invited all kinds of people into a relationship with him, into a life change. And some of the people that he invited were the 12 men who followed him. They were ordinary, uneducated people, is what Acts tells us. They weren't the best of the best. They weren't the brightest. They weren't the hardest working. They weren't whatever. But Jesus said, hey, come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. He was inviting them into a life change. He was inviting them into something that they had no idea what they were being invited into. He did the same thing with tax collectors that no one was inviting anywhere. I've got to believe that tax collectors only hung out with other tax collectors because nobody in their community would invite them anywhere because they were just the black sheep of the community. You didn't want to be caught talking to one. You didn't want to be caught hanging out with one. And Jesus is like, hey, I'm coming to your house tonight, and we're going to have a good time. Invite all your friends. He invited the woman at the well to living water. I know that you've been sleeping around. I know that the man you're sleeping with now is not your husband. You've had 4 other husbands before that. And you got kids, and his and hers and ours and all the above. And he invited her into a relationship. Jesus chose people that nobody else would have thought of, that nobody else would have chosen. And he invited them in to a relationship. And because of that, lives were changed. Lives were changed. The 12 disciples become the head of the church. We see in Acts that they're starting to let Gentiles coming in, and they're trying to figure out, do Gentiles have to do everything that Jewish people do? And they're arguing about this because they got circumcision at this point. And they're like, whoa, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to be involved in that, but I like this Jesus thing. And they go back, and who do they go back to get the official answer about everything? Big Mouth Peter. The man who was just constantly shooting off his mouth, the man who denied Jesus 3 times, the man who was called Satan by Jesus and told him to get behind him. He is now the head of the church, and they're going back to him for answers. It's like Jesus saw things that he didn't. The tax collectors were accepted by God and accepted in their community. And that woman in the well, she was given a second, third, fourth chance. How has an invitation changed your life? One invitation changed your life. I remember I was in the 6th grade, and you move from elementary school into middle school, and you got your elementary school friends, and you know where you stand status-wise with them because you've been with them for 5-6 years. And then you move into the middle school, and all these elementary schools are moving into the middle school, and I was a really cool kid at my elementary school, and you get into middle school, and you're like, I don't know if I'm the really cool kid here or not. The really cool kid in my middle school, and then also in high school, was Rob Fontaine. My man, Rob Fontaine, was an elite athlete and was just so fun to be around. And I remember sitting with him, and we're sitting like homeroom, and he comes, and Rob's like, I can't get my lock open, but I think Scott can help me. I didn't know he knew my name at that point. I was just like, yeah, I can help him open a lock. And so I go with Rob, and Rob invites me over to his house and to his birthday and to out with a group of friends. And those were my friends all through middle school, all through high school. Rob ended up being in my wedding because he invited me to come into their friendships, into this relationship with those guys. And I still have such good friendships that go back to one invitation can change a person's life. We see this here. In John chapter 13, as we continue to walk through the final week of the life of Jesus leading up to Easter, we're going through every single day and talking about what was going on. Josh last week was up here and talked about how Jesus said nothing on that Wednesday. God said nothing to Jesus on that Wednesday. And it's not that sometimes God is got nothing to say. It's because maybe you need to get something right. Maybe he's saying wait. Maybe he's saying, whatever it might be. Josh did a great job with that last week. But we're going to go forward into John chapter 13, starting in verse 31 today. And it says, when he was gone, Jesus said, now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. And if God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself and will glorify him at once. I hear he's maybe going to be glorified. I feel like he's trying to get a point across here. There's some glorification coming along. So, and it says, my children, I will be with you only a little while longer, and you will look for me. And just as I told the Jews, so I am telling you now, where I am going, you cannot come. Now let's think about this for a second. I've read this verse a million times, but these are stories. It's not like we put ourselves into what's going on there. So let's take a second and do that. Let's say that you have spent 3 years of your life, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with a group of guys. You have given up your mother and your father. Some of them had left their wives and their children, and they had gone out. They had left family businesses, everything. They left the land that they knew, and they started following Jesus. And they're out there with them, and they're cooking with him, and they've seen him cast out demons, and they've seen him walk on water, and they've seen everything that Jesus has done because they have invested in him and trusted him completely with everything that they are. And now he says, I'm going and you can't come. How do you feel at that point? Your best friend says, I'm going somewhere and you can't come with me. You feel heartbroken. You feel betrayed, maybe lost a little bit. This has got to be how these guys sort of just took it. It's not like we're reading through our chapter and we just go on to the next verse and we think everything's fine, but imagine how that hit them and how that would hit you if you invested everything into this relationship and then nothing. But Jesus follows this up. And he follows this up with something that maybe could be life-changing. Maybe they can focus on it. If you've ever had something big happen in your life, something that's really painful or whatever might have happened, I tell people, and I don't know this is the best advice, stay busy. Just stay busy, because when you calm down and later at night is when your head starts running and you just climb in there and bad things begin to happen. So maybe this is what Jesus is doing here. He's going to give them a new command that will help them to get through. And he says, a new command I give you. All right, I'm in. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. What? Love one another? That's not new. I'm wondering if Jesus set them up here. He's like, bazinga! I was just joking because, you got to... I love my man Sheldon Cooper. I hate that they're going away, but I have enjoyed it, every bit of it. But this isn't a new command. This goes all the way back to the Torah. They're supposed to love each other. They're supposed to be in a relationship with each other. They're supposed to take care of each other. But what Jesus did here is he stepped it up. Jesus never took anything in the Older Testament, in the First Testament, and said, you know what? Yeah, that's good enough. Let's keep it. No, he stepped everything up. Bang! He stepped everything up to the next level here. And that's what he did here. He said, love them as I have loved you. Daily. In spite of yourself. I believed more in you than you believed in yourself. He just finished washing their feet. He said, that's how I want you to love other people, sacrificially, that you put them above yourself. Not even at the same level as yourself, but above yourself. And by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Jesus is saying this is how we change the world. Not just loving one another, but how we love one another. And what does Simon think about that? So, where are you going? Why can't I come? I mean, you imagine it's like a kid's talking. Simon Peter asked him, Lord, where are you going? And Jesus is like, where I'm going, you cannot follow now, but you will follow later. It's like he didn't even hear anything. He's like, we're going to go. We're going to change the world. By the way, we love each other. And he's like, but you said you were going, right? Like, did you? And Jesus is like, did you even get the thing that I just gave you in the middle there? Did you even hear any of the words that were coming out of my mouth at this point? I mean, it's like a kid or something like that. They're just focused on what they want to focus on. I hear husbands, we might be a bit like this too. We're like, honey, you look really nice tonight. And they're like, I need you to take out the trash. But it's like, but you look nice tonight. And a lot of wives are like, and I asked you to take out the trash tonight. And they're like, no, I didn't hear that part. I didn't hear that part. I'm trying to go back to the part beforehand rather than the part that you're trying to give me here. And that's exactly what Simon Peter did. He missed how they are supposed to love one another and how the whole world will know you are my disciples. He's like, but seriously, you're leaving? I can't come? What, you too good for me now? Like, we can't hang out? We can't be friends anymore? And then Peter asked him, Lord, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. Because this is what we say about friends, right? Like, I'd step in front of a bullet for my kids, for my husband, my wife, my friends, my family. Like, I'd lay down my life for them because that's what we say to show our relationship to somebody, right? This is how much I care about you. But did Jesus love them one time that way? No, he loved them every day that way. And that is a whole bunch harder than one time I will lay down my life. Will you lay down your life for me every day, in every circumstance, in every relationship, in every thought, in every way you spend money, in every way that you treat me? Whew. That's a bit different. And Jesus knew that. Then Jesus answered him, will you really lay down your life for me? Very truly, I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. Because it's easy to say, I'll lay down my life for you because we think it's one big sacrifice. But when it's a million tiny sacrifices, we don't think so much about that. So what does this look like practically, husbands, wives? What does this look like practically, fathers and mothers? Children, friends, what does this look like practically? We got to figure this out. That's one of those questions that I want you to, what does this look like in your house? One of the things that we do in my discipleship is we have this, I don't even remember what it's called, but it's like a challenge in your marriage. And one of the things is like, for the 5 minutes, 5 feet for 5 minutes. When you first come in, you ask your spouse, you're supposed to stay 5 feet away from them. I think it's because it's made for guys, and we like to get up real close and, hey, honey, how you doing? They're like, could you just give me the space? Just give me a minute to figure things out, and you ask them how they're doing. And one of the other things that we've done is we're supposed to take something away from our spouse and just take it on ourselves and take care of it. We're supposed to make sure that they don't have to worry about it anymore. And I think those are the little things that are supposed to be done every single day that we don't like to do, that we don't want to do. But Jesus says, hey, are you really going to lay down your life for me? How about today? What does that look like in this relationship? What does that look like today when the trash needs taken out and you don't feel like doing it? What does it look like today when the kid's up in the middle of the night and you don't feel like getting up? What does it look like today? Because that's what we need to start figuring out. What do you give up for your wives and your husbands regularly that you don't like to do and they don't like to do? Because that's what we've got to figure out. Because it's in those little sacrifices that we are moving closer towards the relationship that we want to have. We are staying connected a little bit at a deeper level than where we were before. Jesus talks about this in John chapter 15, just 2 chapters later. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Let's stop there for a second. So if you ever feel like, I feel like God is punishing me, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, I feel like there's something going on. If you aren't doing what God has called you to do, what God has made you to do, the talents God has given you to use, he will cut you off. If you are using the talents that he has given you and you are doing what he has called you to do, he will prune you, which is still painful sometimes. But it's so that you can grow more. It's so that you can affect more people. But sometimes, James tells us in chapter 1 that we're supposed to love all of the trials that we have, because we know that the testing of our faith develops perseverance. And when perseverance finishes its work, we will be made mature and complete, not lacking anything. So you have to go through tough times. You have to go through a pruning sometimes so that your faith will grow and your faith will mature. It's not about the scriptures that you read, although that is important. It's not about the scriptures that you memorize. It's not about the service work that you do. All of those are good. It is about getting through these tough times, and you learn things about yourself, about your spouse, about the family that you're in, about the church family that you're in, that you wouldn't have learned otherwise, and it matures your faith. And Jesus is reminding them of that here. You are already clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do, what's that word here altogether? There it is. Apart from me, you can do nothing. All you have to do is stay connected to me. All you have to do is be a part of me. I am in you, and you are in me, and we are one together, and I will take care of these things for you. But you have to stay a part of me. You have to stay connected. And if you remain in me, you are like a branch that is, if you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burned. And if you remain in me, my words remain in you. Ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. There's that verse that a lot of health and wealth people like to pull out. All you have to do is ask for something in the name of the Lord, and it will be yours. If you remain in me, if you obey my commands, if you remain connected to me, they forget all of this story that we just heard in front of this. They forgot about the culture that it was attached to. It's not just, ask for anything you want and it's going to be yours, because I've asked for all kinds of stuff and it ain't mine yet. Probably most of the time it's good that it is not mine, because I'm asking for some dumb stuff sometimes. And I'm sure I'm the only one. Anyways, so in verse 8 he goes on, he says, This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. That is the goal, is to make disciples, to be disciples who make other disciples. These are things that God wants us to do. I'm in this preacher's Facebook group, and there was a guy who got on there who said, I'm going to retire in about 2.5 to 3 years, and I'm looking for a preacher to come take my place. Where do I find one? I've checked all the local Bible colleges, and they don't have any. Bible colleges who have 1,000 people or 2,000 people are graduating 5 preachers, 7 preachers. There just aren't enough going around. And other preachers were getting on there. It's like, I can't find them either. If you can find a place to find preachers, please let me know. And there are like 8 or 9 of these going down there. How do you do this? And I'm like, am I the only one that, how are they missing this? We're supposed to make disciples. My job is to make disciples. Your job is to make disciples. Go teach them to preach. Isn't that your job as a preacher? Teach people who feel like maybe they're good at it or maybe they've been called for it, to teach them how to do that. Right now, we have quite a few people who are hoping to preach or wanting to learn to preach a little bit more. Josh was up here last week. Evan is also preaching. Jared Morris said he'd like to learn how to preach. He's going to be up here with me twice later this year. And then also Jason Morris would like to do it. We got 5 people here in our small community who we're teaching how to preach. Why? Because I'm just trying to copy what Jesus did. Somehow or another, we're starting to stand out in this Christian community, in my mind, because we're doing what Jesus said. Like, what did Jesus do? He went and he's like, oh, you guys with me, let's go figure this out. He wasn't like, hey, we're going to send you to seminary, 4 years. We want to spend you $40,000, go there. We're going to ask you to come to Bible college, 4 years. You're going to spend $60,000 and go in debt. No, he was like, you guys with me, I'm going to teach you what you need to know. So I wrote back on there, I was like, can you not teach them how to preach? Can you not help them figure out how to do that? Because we got 5 guys in my church right now that are wanting to learn how to preach, and maybe they end up being preachers. Maybe they fill in. Maybe they don't. But why? Because we're trying to show ourselves to be my disciples. We're just trying to follow after what Jesus did. I don't think we're doing anything special, but so many people are missing it that I guess it's something special. And you need to be involved here. If you are here and you are not involved in one of our discipleship groups, our connection groups are about to come to a stop, but one of our discipleship groups, like, you need to be involved in that. If there's something that God is putting on your heart that you're feeling like, I'd like to try doing that, I'd like to try helping out with that, I'd like to, come talk to us. It is our job to make sure you're equipped as the saints to do works of service. That is our job here. And Jesus is he's just telling people this is what your job is. He goes on in verse 9 and he says, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. You want to find joy in your lives? Obey my commands. You want to find joy in your lives? You want to be made complete? Be my disciples. That's all he's asking for, which is a daily sacrifice every day to stay committed to this, to making Jesus' relationship and that relationship more important than your other relationships. He says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. It's like, oh, I like that. You ask for anything in Jesus' name and I'm in. Woo! I have to do what you command? I have to be a disciple who makes disciples? I don't know that I like that one a whole bunch. But that's what Jesus asked us to do. That's the model that he set for you and for me, is to do that. And how do you do that? Jesus invited people. The invitation was an investment in lives, in futures, in... If you are here today and you feel like, I love this community, I love my small group, I love my discipleship group, I love being a part of this that's happening on Sunday morning, don't you think some of your friends need family like this? Then invite them in. If you are here today and you have not yet invited Jesus into your life, boy, that's a big one. We got to get that one right. And if you haven't done that, and like, I'd love to talk to you, come find me afterwards, email me, whatever you want to do, but that's the first invitation that you got to get right, is you have to remain connected to the vine. And if you lose that connection to the vine, you lose everything. So what does that look like? Here's a couple questions that I want you to ask yourself and answer this week. Are you staying connected? Are you staying connected? Who first introduced you to Jesus? All of us remember who that was, because our life was changed forever. Wouldn't you like somebody else to be sitting somewhere else and a preacher say, who first connected you to Jesus? And they think of you because you made an invitation. You invited them to church. You invited them to discipleship. You invited them over to your house, to a barbecue, to go to the movies, to whatever it is. That's what you got to figure out, is how do I do that? Are you staying connected to your family? Here's something I realized a long time ago, is that I can either make myself something great. When we had the girls and they were younger, I still had something inside of me that said, I want people in this area to know me because I play basketball or softball or I'm a boxer or MMA. Like, I want people, when they hear my name, they're like, oh yeah, he's good. Like, I wanted that. I've always wanted that. I've always felt like I've got a little something extra in me that could do something like this. I had these two little girls at home, and I was like, okay, I either can stop doing, the boxing, the kickboxing, the softball, the basketball, and be at home with my girls. But if I do that, I'm never going to have that renown, that name that I wanted to have. But what I could do is make sure that I invest in my girls so that they could have that name, so that they could do and be something special. And I decided at that point, I'm not going to be out at night playing softball and boxing and kickboxing and MMA, and, I'm just not going to be doing that anymore. So now I fit my schedule around there so that I can be home and I can pour into them and I can invest in them and I can stay connected with them. If you are putting yourself above your family, you are not connected to them anymore. I don't care if you sleep in the same house. I don't care if you say hi to each other. Maybe it's time for you to pour into them rather than pouring into yourself a little bit more. Do you know someone who is not connected to Jesus. Every one of us should know people who are not connected to Jesus. If not, you need to go places where people are not connected to Jesus and make friendships. But you need to invite them. Right now, I am inviting people to Easter. I did not invite people here this Sunday. I did not invite people to next Sunday. I've invited people to Easter. Why? Because it's easy. It's easy. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and I was like, hey, man, you need to come see me at church on Easter. And he was like, yeah, everybody goes to church on Easter. Yeah, I'll come see you on Easter. I'm like, all right, there it is. Like, it's Easter. It's like, everybody goes to church on Easter, don't they? No is the answer, actually, but everybody feels like everybody goes to church on Easter, so I made sure to hand them one of our cards that tells us our time and location, and I invited them to Easter. Make sure you guys are doing this because lives will be changed on Easter. Lives can be changed anytime. But for whatever reason, the community thinks that lives are only changed like at Easter and Christmas. So let's take an opportunity to do that. Invite them into the freedom, the connection that you have. Invite them into that. We've got those cards out at the welcome table that you can still take. And this is the last question, is do you understand love better because you are connected to his family? Do you understand love a little bit deeper, a little bit better because you are part of Catalyst at this point? Because of the small group that you're in? Because of the discipleship group that you're in? Do you understand love a little bit better? Because if not, either you're doing something wrong and not really connecting, or we're doing something wrong. And we've got to get this figured out. Because Jesus tells us that a whole world will know us by the way that we love each other. Supernatural love. And when people see that, everybody wants to be a part of that. I believe you guys here at Catalyst do such a good job of that. You've got to invite more people in because they need what you have. They need the relationships that you have. They need a relationship with you and a relationship with Jesus. You can change their entire life with one invitation. And I know it's going to be hard, and it's going to take 20 seconds of radical faith, of big, hairy, audacious just faith. To step out there and make that invitation. Everything inside of you is going to be saying, oh, I don't know. What if they say no? What if I lose a relationship? What if they don't want to hang out with me? What if they think I'm weird? What if they think But what if they don't? And their lives and their families' lives are changed forever. That's the opportunity each and every one of us has.